Hello and welcome to this Power BI tips and tricks session. I'm calling my session Dynamic Distribution in Power. This distribution series has 4 parts to it. We've already completed the first 2 parts in previous sessions. You can have access to those pre-recorded sessions. Today, we're going to be talking about part 3, which is all around Power BI apps. So what are Power BI apps and what are they best used for? They're best used for combining ready-to-use content and distributing to a broad group of users within your organization. The analogy that I like to use here is movie theater, the key word being broad distribution of content to a broad audience. Published apps are always read-only for the users. Users are only consuming the reports and no longer modifying the reports. Where in workspaces, as we've covered in the previous session, you're collaborating on the development, you're making regular changes. The app is final content. Published apps can be downloaded by the users based on permissions that you have applied to the distribution of the app itself. So where in the workspace, you would be managing individual users or groups, with an app, you are able to allow the download of this app to either individuals or groups within your Azure Active Directory. You also have the option to publish an app for your entire organization and make it very broad. Apps allow you to create a formal process for publishing finalized content. There should be a process that you build around publishing these apps, making it a little bit more formal than just simply managing content within a workspace. It also creates a simplified user experience. So when you are hiring someone, for example, and instead of adding them to a group or maybe as individuals to particular workspaces that they need to have access to, you are able to have them simply log into Power BI and download the app that they would have access to, once again, based on their permissions. So bottom line, use Power BI apps when your goal is formal content distribution, consistent user experience, everybody sees the same app, and controlled access to finalize reports and dashboards across a large audience within your organization. There are some things to be aware of. Number one, there's one app per workspace. You can create only one app per workspace. You can group content, of course, out of that workspace into one app, but that kind of makes you think about how you want to organize things within the workspace in the first place. So make sure that your content in the workspace is narrow enough for it to be eventually published into one app. Visual changes to reports in Power BI won't be visible in the published app until you click the Update App button, meaning at the initial creation process of the app, you are selecting specific reports, and those reports at those versions are carried into the app, and that is what is housed in the app. If you make changes to the underlying reports within the workspace, those changes do not translate into the app unless you go and click the Update App button. So changes to reports don't translate, but underlying changes to the semantic model will affect the data in the app. So make sure that when you're making changes to semantic models and data sets that are being used in reports that are then being used in the app, make sure you understand what changes you're making and what effect that might have on your app and apps out there. So that means you have to establish clear roles and responsibilities when it comes to updating and distributing apps. Make sure that it is specific individuals who have the role and access to be able to go in and publish and update an app. Make sure those responsibilities are clear. Make sure to develop a version control and update process and system. So when an app needs to be created or updated or edited, make sure that you have a formal process in place and people that are requesting these changes understand the formal process. Be careful to distribute sensitive data broadly. Because it is built for distributing content very broadly, it is easy to over distribute and maybe even sensitive or inaccurate data. So make sure that the content that you're distributing is going to the right audience and it has the right content in it. Lastly, do not assume that apps are being used in your organization simply because you created the app. Instead, provide regular training and guidance to your end users of what apps are available to them and how they are to be used. It's easy to assume that apps will simply be used, but that is not the case. I want to show you a demonstration of how to create an app and how it can be downloaded. So I'm in my Power BI workspace here, a workspace that I'm calling Report Packs. Notice that I have two different reports in here, and I have two different semantic models in here. What I'm going to be able to do is group some of this content into one app and make it available all in one app. Here's how easy it is to create an app from a workspace. There's a button on the top right-hand corner here called Create App. If I click that button, I am now able to name this app. I'm going to call it Finance and Sales Velosio app. There's a description here. I'm going to call Organization app. I can write anything I want here. Notice that this description is then going to be available for the people that need to download the app. So it's a good opportunity to write a better description than what I wrote here as far as what is the purpose and content of this app. I can update a logo if I wanted to. I can change the app theme and color. And then here's how easy it is to add the content to this app. I click the next button, which says Add Content. I can then click Add Content. And now notice what I have available for me are the two reports that I had in my workspace. So I'm simply going to include both of them, and I'm going to click Add. Notice those two reports are now added to my app, and they are grouped by the reports that I had in the workspace. But then I can select the audience. Notice how I can select the audience here. I can either grant access to the entire organization, which I'm going to do, or I can select specific users or groups. I'm going to hit Publish App to the entire organization. When you notice what it says, when you publish an app that has large distribution, it might take a little while to process. Typically, the content will be available within 5 to 10 minutes, but it can take up to 1 day. So depending on the size of your app, it might take a while for it to end up on the apps section of Power BI. But what it does allow you to do once you click publish here is go to that app. Either share the link right away to that app or click go to that app, and it will show you what this app will look like for the end user. So I'm now viewing these reports that I had in Power BI, and I'm accessing this in the app. So notice it's very similar to using it in the workspace. It's still all completely interactive. Notice all the editing functionality is out of here. And also I have on the left-hand side the ability to view these different reports that I have selected for the app. So now just going back and sharing with you how do we then think about the end user downloading this. I'm just going to go to the home page again. There's this section on the left-hand side called Apps. So imagine this is now on the end user side, and a person knows that there's an app out there that they can download. They open up Apps, go to Get Apps, and when they go to Organization Apps, notice now the Finance and Sales Velosio app that I created is in here. If I click it, I can simply see the app and I can have access to it and download it into my apps. That's it, folks, on the Power BI apps. Thank you for your time.